TikTokers are posting reenactment videos of them hanging out the window to prove that Lindsay Clancy is innocent. This weekend, I've seen two different women hanging out of their own windows. The first woman was hanging out of her two-story window after putting blue dish soap on her wrist to show where the stain should have been if Lindsay opened it.
They're not TikTokers, they're women. Notice they use gender-neutral terms. They call them TikTokers. Where are all the male TikTokers? There's nowhere. And you realize this has nothing to do with TikTok. This is how the average woman thinks. The average woman wants women to have the right to murder their children and get off scot-free. That's what this is about. And you'll see what I mean. Now, this is not TikTok. This is a YouTube video covering the case. And what do you see in the comments? This is not resentment. These are the struggles of real moms, because the video title said, "Chilling note about resenting her children's revealed at trial." Right. It showed that her motivation was she was resentful at having to look after these kids. And there's women in here defending her. And of course, someone called her out, said she called it resentment herself. I guess that's why the video uses the word. You're saying Lindsay didn't feel resentment when Lindsay herself said she felt resentment. Exactly. People who defends her are sick. Well, sadly, that says a lot about the average woman, right? One guy says here, the amount of women defending her murderous actions is diabolical. Leaky faucet, he calls it out. This is women defending other women's crimes. 100%. So this has nothing to do with TikTok, does it? TikTok is merely a platform where women express how they actually feel. Now, here's another thing. $2 million was raised into GoFundMe for the Musgrove Family Fund. It's been launched for Lindsay Clancy's parents, raising over $850,000 under a week. For her parents, not Lindsay, right? But while the campaign's official purpose is to cover the parents' travel, lodging, and living expenses, many online comments and donations have been interpreted as a direct support for Clancy, and it is. You think her parents aren't going to cover her bills? You think her parents aren't going to give this money to her defense attorneys? Of course they are. So do you see the bait and switch here? Or I should say the tendency, listen to me, the motivation to try to hide what this money is for. And it's veiled, right? It's a thin veil. It doesn't work, right? Now, who was it who did this anyway, right? It was this young lady called, let's say, Brandee Mulligan. And who is she? She is a Wisconsin-based TikTok creator and mother of 3, known for sharing sentimental and humorous parenting content. Now, guys, notice this woman is all about her family, but her reaction isn't this woman deserves to hang. Her reaction is, I feel the same way about my kids someday. Someday I might want to murder my children so I don't have to look after them. And I want to be let off scot-free. That's what's going on here. Notice, guys, men are the complete opposite. If a man fails at something, the guys who made it through will turn around and say, yeah, that guy's a weakling. He deserves everything he gets. Notice these women are the complete opposite to that. Why? Because they see themselves first and their fellow sisters. Children and men come in it. Don't even enter the race. I was going to say distant second. We're not even in the race. And of course, There was the conspiracy theory that her husband, Patrick Clancy, was the mastermind behind this. Blame the man. This is a typical feminist tactic, or actually just a female tactic. A woman does something heinous, find a man to blame. Now that we've covered that, I want to look at this disgusting video by Cheer Denise, where she tries to cover it. And she's going to pretend that she's neutral and she sees it from a greater view. No, she supports this murderess. I guarantee it. You're going to hear it. Let the excuse making begin.
I've stayed away from this case predominantly because it seemed so large and vast and so difficult to really get my hands around. It's also really...
No. You didn't want to touch this case. You had to because you wanted it for your YouTube channel. But you don't want to have to say this woman is a murderer. She's a child murderer and she deserves to hang. You don't want to do that because you're a housewife lead. You have children of your own. And in the end, you will condone her for it. Right? And it's nothing vast about this. How's it vast? Right? How's it hard to wrap your hands around? It's very easy. This woman got tired of looking after her children, so she murdered them so she didn't have to. End of story. Of course, you don't want to say that, do you?
Painful situation. If you're unfamiliar with this case, the bare bones of the facts are these. In 2013, there was a woman who had 3 small children. One was an infant, 8 months old, and the other...
8 months is an infant, everybody. I've seen actual infants. It's usually 1, 2, 3 months old. Those are infants. 8 months old is a baby. In a couple months, that child would have been starting to walk. So it is a red flag when a mother calls an 8-month-old an infant.
2 were 3 and 5. She was dealing with an enormous amount of postpartum anxiety.
Says you. And as you hear, guys, she's starting the excuses now. Cheer Denise. There are men who have murdered other people and they're schizophrenics. And they've been put behind bars. They've considered mental illness was not an excuse. Because they're men. Men do not get the excuse of mental illness.
Depression has been used, but anxiety has been used more often than that. She had been seeking all manner of medical treatment in the 8 months after her most recent baby. And
Can I ask you something, Denise? Why didn't she ask her husband to get parental leave? Notice that's never on the table for you housewives. You complain about men not sharing the household chores. Why can't you say we should start fighting for parental leave for men and getting the husband home and he can be there 24/7 with the wife and sharing the burden? She would never suffer the psychosis that you're talking about because they don't want them there. You don't want your husband at home. And Lindsay definitely didn't want her husband at home. You want those boys out working for you. So that solution is never on the table. Also, Lindsay had grandparents. Grandmother's still fairly young. She's not willing to come over and help her out with the babies. See, this is bullshit.
in those 8 months, she had received 13 different kinds of medication from various providers. She was a nurse herself, and she seemed really...
So there you go. She was a nurse herself. She knew better than to take all those. She could have talked with her doctor, said, I'm a nurse. I know what those are about. I don't need all those, right?
Really concerned about becoming dependent on these medications, and also super frustrated the medications weren't working fast enough. So after taking them for several days...
Okay, I'm going to skip by this part, guys, because it's just her making excuses. Trying to blame it on the medication. Sorry, Denise, skipping by that. Oops. Yeah.
and the general sense of overwhelm that she felt in parenting the kids. And her
By the way, everyone, my mother had 9 of us. I'm sure she was overwhelmed as well, right? It's funny how all the women in the past that had like 6, 7, 8 kids, they were overwhelmed and yet they got through it. It's only modern day times when women don't need children to become, the retirement package, that all of a sudden they can't handle it and the babies die.
feelings that she was not adequately capable and able to take care of the kids, specifically the youngest one. She was having major issues with feeding him, especially because he was learning to sleep through the night. And she decided to do sleep training method to try to get him to sleep at night because she was so sleep deprived that she thought if I can just get some.
How is she sleep deprived? How come the husband didn't get up and look after the kids? I mean, he might be at work, but not at night, right? So why wouldn't he just get up during the night and look after the kids, right? No one ever mentions that. No one ever says, oh, he was a bad husband. He never got out and looked after the kids. None of that. And again, her grandmother didn't come home over during the days and look after her and give her a nap. See, this doesn't add up, Cheer.
Sleep. Maybe I can get a handle on how inadequate I feel during the day because I can't nap because the older kids don't have the same nap schedule. So
the older kids, maybe the 3-year-old is taking naps, but not the 5-year-old. If a mother is making her kids that age take naps, it's because she doesn't want to deal with them. Cheer.
feeling like she was running on fumes. So she thought, I've got to get him sleeping through the night. And that had been kind of traumatic because if you ever tried doing sleep training when the baby's crying and you're not attending to the baby because you need.
Here, this is her 3rd child. She's already been through this. So the first 2, she got by no problem, but this 3rd child, she just couldn't handle it. All right.
Them to cry it out. It's really stressful if that's not a method that you feel comfortable with. And so she was struggling with that.
Cry it out. In other words, she didn't want to bother holding the kid. Right. Just put him in the room, let him cry. I'll sit around and relax. Okay.
And struggling with feelings of guilt that she had the baby crying it out. But then she was like, I've got to get him sleeping. But because he was sleeping longer through the night and she wasn't feeding through the night, then her milk supply dropped.
Yeah, this is a bunch of excuse-making bullshit. Let's pause it here. Yeah, we'll start here.
But on the day of the incident, she seemed like she had rallied. She'd taken her oldest daughter to the doctor.
Wow, she kind of rallied on the day that the incident happened. Funny, maybe because she realized she had a plan to get rid of her problems.
Seemed like maybe her stomach was hurting because she needed to use the restroom. So when she got home, she had played with the kids outside in the snow, sent pictures to her mom and her husband of the kids playing. Her husband had sent her text messages back calling her a good mom. So they come back inside. She realizes it's late. She hasn't planned supper. So she asks her.
Yeah, she's letting everyone know everything's okay. So no one's going to show up when she's ready to strangle her kids to death.
Husband, do you want to get takeout tonight for dinner? And he agrees. And she says, also, I need you to go and pick up some Miralax for our daughter. Presumably, this is what the pediatrician had suggested that they do. So
why would you mention the pediatrician at all? What you should notice that she told the husband to get lost so she can take care of these kids.
Her husband goes out to get the medication and to pick up the takeout food. And in his absence, she took this opportunity to kill the children and then to slit her wrists and her throat and jump out the 2nd-story window. The prosecution is here to say that she did all of this. It was premeditated. She was in her right mind. The defense is not suggesting that she did not kill these children. A year ago, she wrote, I think it was like a 64-page description of everything that occurred that night. And this isn't like in the heat of the moment right after it happened. It's when she's
she's been planning this for a long time.
and calm and rational and able to think over what had happened, she remembers every detail of that day and what happened. So she's
Because she wasn't psychotic. She's just a woman who got fed up with looking after her children.
written a long statement. She's confessed to these crimes. So the court case is not on who did it or if she should be off scot-free for this. The question now is, where will she be contained? Should she go to prison for this, or should she be in a mental health facility?
A mental health facility is getting off scot-free. It is. Men don't get health facilities. They get jail. They get prison. So Denise, for you to try suggest this puts a light on you.
I have been surprised by the way that the public has reacted to this case.
Well, either you're stupid or you're lying. Because 130 feminist organizations supported Amber Heard over Johnny Depp, even though he was obviously the victim. Why would you be surprised? Right?
Surprisingly, there is an enormous amount of sympathy for this woman who killed her 3 kids. But I think it's because there are so many people who
I'm not surprised at all. I'm not surprised at all.
can relate to feeling overwhelmed in motherhood. Postpartum depression is a really common situation. 1 in 7
Wanting to kill their kids. Yeah.
mothers face postpartum depression, but only 2 in every 1,000 face postpartum psychosis, which is the final diagnosis for Lindsay Clancy. And the argument of the defense is that her psychosis came up.
Why was it psychosis particular, right? Because if it was just mere depression, then they would have to actually separate children from their mothers if they claimed depression, right? No one's taking your kids away. Your kids aren't people. They're owned objects by you, the mother.
Upon her suddenly. Apparently, she'd been having intrusive thoughts for some time and had even told her husband about these intrusive thoughts and had even said to him, I think sometimes about killing the kids. He says that she had told him this twice. Now, if I have a spouse who comes to me and says, I've considered harming the kids, or I'm going to harm myself, or I'm afraid something bad's going to happen to the kids under my care, I'm not leaving that lady alone with my kids.
Easy for you to say, cheer. The husband has no power in the relationship. Who's he going to go to? Who's he going to go to who's going to willingly separate her from her children? Society sees the woman as the owner of those children. Society, cheer. How many single mothers are abusive? The most abusive parents are single mothers. Single mothers abound. Because people do not care about children. They care about the mother being in charge, the woman being in charge. Divorce courts will actually give children to the abusive mother over the kind father. I mean, you can claim something like this because you're the female. You have some kind of power. The husband has none.
It just simply would not happen. But also, when everyone is in the thick of things and every day feels like chaos and it feels like I'm just trying to walk through the quagmire of my life.
This is bullshit. If your life's a quagmire, that's due to your own personal life choices.
As crazy.
I'm a mother. I had to work for a living. I had to look after these brats. You know, I could have had him do it, but I didn't want him to give him the easy job. No house husband here, right?
Crazy it sounds to us in a calm and sane and rational place. Perhaps her husband, Patrick, just felt like Well, she is addressing her mental health issues because she was. At one point, she put herself into a
Also, as a man who's dealt with a woman for years, he probably looks at her and says, yeah, she's just crying for attention. She's just making it about herself. He's at that typical male experience right there. Cheer.
facility for 4 days. She was trying to deal with her situation. She was seeing mental health professionals. It wasn't like she was quietly having these thoughts and telling no one. She talked to her mother about it. She talked to her husband about it. I guess I'm just more surprised they didn't take her seriously. I think,
Well, for one thing, two things actually. One, again, they probably didn't take her seriously because, women are like that, aren't they? Right? There's a lot of false alarms, just a lot of attention hoarding. Right? The other thing is, again, even if they did take her seriously, who's going to separate a mother from her children? Society doesn't allow that, cheer Denise.
if I've gotten to the point where I'm saying out loud to people, I'm thinking of harming myself, or I'm thinking something.
Sure. Women, at least in the UK, are allowed to smoke and drink while pregnant. Do you understand that? So if you're surprised, you're just in denial of how much women are in charge.
Bad's going to happen to the kids under my care. I don't know how many times I have to say that before somebody is shocked out of their seat to get the kids away from me. I mean, did she need to say this to them every day before they're like, you know what, I think that Lindsay doesn't feel good right now? She jumped.
Well, she wants to murder her children. That's what you should be saying, right? Notice you make it all about Lindsay. Lindsay's not feeling well. Now, if it was your husband, you wouldn't say, geez, my husband's not feeling well. You'd say, oh, my husband's going to kill my children. Someone do something.
Jumped out of the window after she killed her kids, an attempt to kill herself, and crippled herself in her efforts. But did
No. She didn't attempt to kill herself. Cheer. She attempted to put a smoke screen, right? So I would think she was crazy. That's what her attempt was. And crippling herself was not planned. Trust me, she's thinking I screwed that up. I just meant to give myself a few, slight cuts and maybe a twisted ankle.
not kill herself. There are people who see this woman sobbing in her wheelchair and they're like, for whatever reason, people seem to think that because she's crying about it in court, that means she's sad because somebody is blaming her for something she didn't do.
No, she's sad because someone's blaming her for something she did do. She's facing consequences, Denise.
And in the light of that, there's all these people on TikTok and all the crazies.
No. They're not crazies. They are women. And they just happen to be using TikTok. But again, I showed the women having the same attitude on YouTube. The platform is neither here nor there. So what you're trying to do, I see what you're trying to do. You're trying to say, these aren't women in general. This is just people on TikTok. Like, only the crazy people go on TikTok. And these women aren't crazy. If the Klansmen were making up stories about the Jewish guys, which they do, you don't call them crazy. You just say they're bad people. And that's what's happening here. These women are making up stories about the woman's husband and trying to get her off scot-free, right? Off the hook.
Online who are rising up saying her husband did it and is framing her.
There you go.
If there was any reality to that equation, I can promise you that this defense lawyer that she has, who everybody loves, would have immediately pinned Patrick for it, because this guy is not sitting over there waiting for other people to tell him which way the wind blows. The cross-examination of Dr. Tufts, the one who prescribed her...
Again, this isn't crazy. White nationalists make up stories about the Jews. It's just because they hate the Jews. These women are making up this story about the husband because they hate men.
Some of the most recent medications was an absolute takedown. He wouldn't let that girl hardly speak a word before he was already poking holes in everything she was saying. And if anybody should be on trial for these kids other than Lindsay Clancy, it is the medical personnel who were fine giving her 13 medications in 8 months without conferring with each other.
Well, she was the nurse. Isn't this her bag? Why didn't she refuse them? You yourself said that she was only on 3. Right? So she wasn't taking 13.
The young thing on the stand who was no match for the defense lawyer had advertised herself as an expert in postpartum depression with only like a month of practicing time. I mean, it was...
I'm glad you're bringing this up, Cheer, because this brings up a men's issue. So women get boosted in the education system and they take up bullshit fields like psychotherapy, right? That's a pseudoscience. And they get boosted in the job market. So this woman wasn't competent at her job. She didn't have to be. She's female. Do you see how that's a men's issue?
Pretty embarrassing. And she had not ever bothered to ask Lindsay to sign a medical release form so that she could get information from Lindsay's other doctors. But then she's over there just passing out the medication like it's candy on Halloween.
Well, what can I say? I mean, modern doctors aren't really doctors. They're really pharmacists. Hey, here in Canada, the doctors get kickbacks for pushing medication. That's why they're always doing it. They're financially incentivized. People don't get into the medical field to actually look after other human beings. It's gain status and wealth.
People failed her consistently.
Oh, hear that, guys? This woman who murdered children because she just didn't want to look after them anymore. Other people failed her.
But she did kill those kids. And somehow all the TikTokers always want it to be some crazier story.
No, not TikTokers, women. And they don't want to be a crazier story. They want her to get off the hook. They want the ability, the right to murder their children and then hide behind some bogus, made-up medical term.
Everybody wants it to be some twisty, turny Netflix story. Is it not enough for you that this woman received pathetic care at the hands of the doctors who were just...
See, it's not enough for you that this woman killed 3 helpless children? No, that's not the issue. Can you not understand that this woman was let down by others? Cheer, she got her husband to leave the house before she did her children in. How are you going to blame that on the medical profession? Continue.
Filling out the pharmacy to her right, left, and center, and that as a consequence of her psychosis and her over-medicated state, she then killed her kids. Is that not wild enough for you? The woman has repeatedly said...
How is it wild? Infanticide has gone on throughout human history. It's fairly common occurrence.
She did it. She remembers every word of it. If she wanted to wiggle out of this, she could have been like, I don't know. I'm not sure what happened.
What are you talking about? She couldn't say that. The evidence was there. If she could say that, Denise, she would have. The defense would have used it. Nice try, TikToker.
Now, the prosecution wants to say never a word had fallen from her mouth about hearing any voices until she gets with the defense. And then the defense tells her she had psychosis. And now she's trying to tell her husband that she heard an auditory voice that said, kill the kids now so you can kill yourself.
Why would she tell her husband? I thought the defense was about the courtroom. Why would she need to tell her husband? Again, guys, it's because she wants to keep the husband around. He's the breadwinner. He's the servant. The idea is get rid of the kids because they're work and keep the servant around.
Yesterday in trial, and the TikTokers are super excited about this one.
No, the women are. The women are. You're defending her too. So the only difference between the females on the TikTok and you right now is in matter of degrees, how far you're willing to go.
Yesterday in trial, they were talking about searches that had happened on the family computer, and that 5 months ago there were some searches about the carotid artery and where it was and how you could.
I don't know if we should continue that because I don't want to make this overly long. Let me just skim ahead.
For me, one of the things that I find least compelling in the argument that this was by psychosis. Although ultimately, I will tell you right now, I believe that it was psychosis.
Well, there you go. You're an enabler. You're a TikToker then. I don't believe it at all. Her actions are that of a person who makes plans and know exactly what she's doing.
Because her being normal all day and then falling into this sudden crazed mania aligns with psychosis. That's the whole thing. You are pretty normal and functioning. And then
how come, Denise, she didn't do it when anyone was around? How come she didn't do it in front of her parents or her husband when he was at home? How come it's so convenient, the timing? It's not till she's safe and home with the kids all by herself that all of a sudden the psychotic break happens, right? It's just random, everybody, but it's such convenient randomness, right? I'm calling bullshit on you, TikToker.
And you have a break with reality. I find it interesting that she would kill her kids, and then when it came to killing herself, she doesn't seem like she had the same drive to do herself in that she had.
She didn't because she wasn't planning on that at all. This is where I can start to smell dishonesty, Denise. Her plan was obvious. Get rid of the kids, pretend she was crazy, get off scot-free.
With her kids. Jumping out of a second-story window, what are you jumping into? Like the grass? Are you jumping onto concrete? She crippled herself in the effort. But interestingly, the wounds that she inflicted on herself, as a nurse, she should have known how to inflict a wound.
She did know. It's just proof that this woman was trying to stage this. And crippling herself was not in the plan. You think she gave her such superficial wounds and then said, well, I'll bust a hip? No. Her plan was when she jumped from the window, she might land on her feet and break an ankle. That's what her plan was.
That would have killed her. But the wounds on her wrists and neck were superficial.
You're right.
Now, my question is, and I don't know, so those of you who know about these things, is it possible that the psychosis and that the drive to kill was diminishing, and when she finally got around to killing herself, which is the whole reason why she had killed the kids in the first place, was to dispose of them so that she could then dispose of herself? Is it possible?
No. Dispose of the kids because you want to dispose of the kids. Don't even bother. Denise.
Possible that the psychosis and the drive to kill had begun to wane?
Wow, this is incredible reaching. When everyone's gone and she's alone with the kids, all of a sudden she has a psychotic break. It lasts just long enough for her to strangle all three of them. And then it starts to dissipate when it's her turn. Wow, what a coincidence. Denise, again, you're no different than these women on TikTok. The only difference between you and them is a matter of degrees and the fact that you're on YouTube. You're just not on TikTok. That's it. But you're no different from them. And again, that's why I brought up this. Where is it here? Right? I'm getting the right one. Yeah. That's why I showed these comments. This isn't TikTok, is it? This is YouTube, and women behave the exact same way as TikTok. Look at this woman. This is not resentment. This is the fear of all mothers of small children have. Yeah, they fear not taking care of their children, so they murder them, right? I've never heard something more relatable as a mother. See, all these women who have children, they want people to know that's completely normal for women to have these feelings about their children, and that, if they murder their children, they should be let off scot-free. Okay, called out this bullshit. Because again, I'm sorry that I didn't include this at the beginning, right? It's all about, let's see, where is it? This fund, this $2 million fund, GoFundMe, shows you that the average woman supports this murderer. She got $850,000 in it under a week. This woman is being supported, not her parents. These people don't care about her parents. They know the parents are going to look after the daughter. They know that they're going to be putting that money towards her defense attorneys. Nice try. What's your name? Brandee? Anyway, I've said what I need to say here.